So we're going to start. This is the Demonic Realm series. This is part 3. And we're going to start with one actually that isn't a sleep paralysis dream. Now, as I mentioned in the previous dreams, pretty much all of them were sleep paralysis dreams. In that they were in reality, in real time happening. Okay. Whereas this one was actually an attack within a dream, but it was one where I knew it was an actual demon, that entered the dream, had hijacked the dream. Okay, so this one I would define as a more of a demonic attack, as I said, within a dream rather than reality. Okay, so this is the first one I think I've gone through. Yeah, it's the first one I've gone through like that in this series. Anyway, I've done some other ones, and this particular one I'm going to go through here is one that I've actually filmed already. So I filmed the full episode, so I'm going to try and summarise it as much as I can. So this one was around, well, this was 6th of the 9th, 2023. And this one's called Airport Lounge. So for the full episode, just look up Airport Lounge. It will be on there. So I'm just going to quickly summarise this one. So this attack, basically it started off as a dream in an airport. And then I was surrounded by these kind of like, almost like zombie-like people, my mates bashing into me and stuff. And there was this, and I was, basically, if you think of being kind of like swarmed by people, it was like a zombie sort of thing, being swarmed by people. And I'm kind of pushed over, bent over, kind of like doubled over with the weight of a few people, like almost like bundling me, kind of getting on top of me and stuff. And I'm bent over in a position to where I can't move. And then as this demon comes in, and it comes in so that it's almost like it's announcing itself. So I know it's around there. Everything else, if you think of like characters in anything, like a movie or something like that, or a computer game, or even just a dream, all of these people are kind of like anonymous people. Apart from my friends who have come in and they've not helped in any way, they've actually added to the problem, made it even worse. But this character is the character who, as I said, hijacks the dream, and it's actually, yeah. Let's go to that, and I'm just going to quickly find it. Blah blah blah. Yeah, here we go. It's around here. Okay, so this particular character is like using these other people in the dream to, as I say, get me in this position where I can't move, and I'm bent over. So if you imagine I'm kind of sort of standing up, I've got the weight of people pushing down on me to the point where I just kind of fold over and my head's facing down, almost facing towards my knees. And that's the position that this demon wants me in, so that it knows where my head is and stuff. And what basically happens is it's trying to look at me, okay. And I've heard this actually from, I've read a few books around they're what we call seers. Now seers, Seer, in the Bible, they're basically, and modern day as well, right now, are people that actually see the spirit realm, actually like, with their own eyes while they're awake. They just see the spirit realm. Obviously, I don't see anything like that. And they've described how what they were terrorized as children and stuff like that. And what would happen is a demon would come into their bedroom, let's say, and would look to stare at them. And as soon as it made eye contact, it kind of locked you in. And then it would start feeding you fear and stuff like that. Actually, this happened way before I read those books, like years before, like what, a year to 2 years before I actually read this book and got that kind of an explanation. But that's exactly what I got from it. So sorry if I keep wiping my eyes. It's early in the morning. It's 6 o'clock. I've got up to get a lot of dreams recorded before going to church. So I want to get a few videos in beforehand. So yeah, sorry if I'm looking a bit tired. So it's trying to make eye contact with me, and I've got very much a sense. And again, I will use this again to describe the fact that I had alarm bells ringing off, essentially in my mind, and this was the Holy Spirit telling me essentially, do not make eye contact with this thing. And so I was like closing my eyes really, really hard. And what happened was I was kind of lifted out of my eye view to then sort of seeing it slightly behind me and looking down on it, and then I can see this thing kind of like looking around and getting down all low to look up at me. And the idea is it's trying to look up at me while I'm sort of bent over, kind of almost like looking through my legs or around my legs to make contact. And that's its plan. It's actually quite short. I mean, I can't remember what I said as a size, but I would have said this thing is around 5 foot or less than 5 foot. Okay, so quite a bit shorter than me. And I can't see that. I can't really say that many really. Those people are shorter than me. I'm about 5'8", 5'9", 5'10". I tend to prefer 5'10", but whether that's realistic or not, apparently not. It's trying to get to me, and this thing's wearing a mask. Okay, so it's got a mask. It almost looks like a welder's mask, you know. So it's a sort of, you know, curved off shape, and it's got a flat. I think I don't actually say that. I don't know if it did have a flat top to it. Actually, yeah, it did. It did have a flat top to it, and then came up like that. So it was like the shape of a welder's mask, and it was black and it was smooth, again like a welder's mask actually. But it was had eye slits, and then I think it had like some sort of slit for the mouth or something like that. But this it was all backlit. So if you imagine it's got like almost like a light inside the inside this mask that's making the eyes beam out and mouth beam out this blue light. I'm pretty sure it's blue light. Yeah, there we go, blue light. There you go. Now, again, anybody who's seen quite a few of my videos will realise how incredibly frequent the colour blue is in the spirit realm. I had no idea until actually reading all these through, and I've actually watched a lot of people's dreams, and they actually say exactly the same thing. A lot of people describe the colour blue, you know, light blue, dark blue, but blue. You know, that's such a common thing, and I don't know why that is. But again, even when I saw things like UFOs in the sky, blue. When I've seen spirits hovering above me, blue. You know, outlined blue, and within with the UFO, like outlined blue with blue detail in it, with the spirit above, the demon hovering above me, outlined blue, stuff like that. I don't know the significance of blue, but it's incredibly frequent. Like, as I said, I'm racking my brains to think of a single time I've seen anything in the spirit realm that hasn't been blue. I can't really think of anything. There'll probably be one that I'll come across maybe, but blue is really, really prevalent. Anyway, so as I said, I get the sense of the Holy Spirit gives me the sense of do not look at this thing. So I'm eyes closed, like you know, like clenching my eyes closed, knowing not to look, and being obedient to that. You know, you know how you can almost want, well, just take a little sneak peek. I didn't, as I said, because I didn't need to, because the view came back, and I was seeing this thing anyway, looking up at me. And then what happens is right, yeah, smooth black. All right, cool. Sorry, I read that slightly wrong. Sorry for the delay there. I clicked within the dream, as I said, this is a demonic attack. Okay, again, I couldn't easily identify it. You don't always identify these things straight away. Sometimes they just come on them, you know, just come on quick, and then you, as I said, alarm bells ring. I was just writing one out actually last night, which was very much like that. So I'm probably going to do that as part of this series actually, because it is a really interesting one. But I haven't shot a video for that yet. That's going to get a full-length video because that's got a lot of detail to it. But I've clicked, and then then I start shouting Jesus, okay? Because at this point, again, this is September 2023. I've been saved since March of 2023. I've had many attacks, and no, shouting Jesus gets you out of these dreams. They release quite quickly. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, you only get to the literally just the J. The demon knows what's coming and just gets out of there, because they don't want Jesus to turn up. And for clarity, that's never happened. Jesus has never actually. I've never shouted Jesus and then Jesus has turned up. It's the name is powerful enough, that he doesn't even need to be present. Whether he is present to some degree, and I just don't see him. I don't know. I truly don't know. So anyway, so I'm chanting Jesus. Okay. So with all the previous dreams up to this point, I'm being strangled and stuff like that. So there's always been an aspect of me not being able to easily say Jesus, Whereas in this situation, I'm not being strangled or anything like that. So I can just, like I'm saying right now, I can just start going, Jesus, 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 and that's literally how it was. It was like a proper chant that was getting going. And then I said, yeah, like I was cheering on my favourite football team. And then the dream flipped into something different. So it shut that dream down. But it was a continuation, but just like a completely different scene. Okay, so then the dream flipped into another bit where there was actually a tiny little scene, which I did mention as a thought, I think, when I initially go through this as a dream. Because I'm not going to really cover off thoughts too much on this one, I don't think so. But I would have done more in the other one. So do watch the full episode of the other one. So it flips to this other bit where I'm now in a bedroom, and it's really weird. This demon's sitting on like a office chair, and I'm sitting on a chair as well, and we're looking at a computer screen. But it looks more like a PC sort of computer screen in a screen in a bedroom, which is super strange, obviously. And that's all I see is just that little flash scene of me being next to this demon. Really, really odd. But then it goes into a black screen. So then it just, again, like scene change, completely black screen, and then an image of a TV kind of sort of like materializes in this dream, and it's all an 8-bit Nintendo screen. And I just, yeah, 8-bit Nintendo screen, and it shows a picture of, if you imagine kind of like it's difficult to describe, but like a rolling sort of pavement. Yeah, and if you imagine you're fixing a camera and it's almost like somebody's on a treadmill walking towards you, the pavement's kind of going across with this scene of a really young girl, 6 years old, I would say, maybe 8, but I would say more 6, to be honest. Very young. She's in a pink princess dress, blonde hair, pigtails, and as I said, this is in 8-bit visuals, so it looks like the old Nintendo NES, like the first proper personal consoles that came out. That kind of very blocky, almost Minecraft looking, graphics. Very, very, very basic. And you very, very basic, obviously, what's it called? Music to accompany these kind of games. But that's how it came up. So it was me seeing this little girl in computer graphics, very basic computer graphics, pixelated, walking towards me, as I said, wearing these big puffy shoulders, and it was a pink princess dress, okay, blonde hair, pigtails, and she's skipping along skipping down along this pavement. And she's chanting Jesus in the same way as I've just been chanting Jesus. So she's going, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And she's holding the arm, almost like you would do like a very small teddy, that little kids, taken out with their parents, for comfort. She was holding the hand of this spirit, but the spirit is much smaller than she is. I said a little bit like a cuddly toy. And she kind of almost like, I guess, like stretches his arms out and starts using it as a skipping rope. And as she's swinging it around, she's going, Jesus. And when she says Jesus is when its head is slamming into the pavement. It's Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And it's just pounding its head as she's skipping down this road. It's really comical, actually, to see. And you should have seen the face on this demon. This demon was terrified of this little girl. And watch the full video for the meaning as to what that's about, okay? But it essentially showed me how incredible that God creates visuals for us, and the message for that is so great about, as I said, it's kind of showing, that even the weakest that we could ever possibly imagine, which, I mean, obviously would be a baby, but if not, a little girl that's in a princess costume that's playing make believe tea parties with on their own, or has a, you know, it's that kind of thing, and that she's just absolutely dominating this spirit that I've been really concerned about and worried about, and it's just showing the power of Christ, really, and Jesus, the power in the name of Jesus. Okay, but again, I go into quite a bit more detail. So that's that one. I wanted to aim for about 15 minutes or less on that one. Right, so let's go on to the next one. So as I said, that one, I wasn't in my bedroom. Well, obviously I was sleeping in my bedroom, but it went from me being kind of fearful a little bit. I wasn't terrified in that dream at all, but I was a bit I was fearful because I knew it was a demon. You never know what's going to happen. But then obviously I was chanting along with that girl. So as that girl was going, Jesus, I'm chanting the same, and I'm kind of like, woohoo, I'm there with you, kind of thing. So that's a demonic attack. So that's how that's different, obviously, to sleep paralysis, where you're literally in your room, in real time, seeing yourself in the bedroom, and things are happening. And I think I've already mentioned, there's two different types of sleep paralysis. There will be one where you see in colour, is how I would just sort of differentiate. One where you see it in colour and you're sitting up in the bed and you're being attacked, but you feel like you're very much, your spirit is connected to your body, okay? Then there is a different type, which we'll come up to quite soon, actually, which is more, I've always found to be black and white as to how it looks. And that is where your spirit is actually being pushed out of your body, and you're now separated from your body. So there's two different types of sleep paralysis, okay, that I've experienced. So anyway, we're moving on past this one. So that was, as I said, that was September. Now there was a little bit of a gap, probably not too big a gap. Oh no, just loads of dreams in that time frame. So now we're through to October, so mid October, so about a month later. Okay, so this one, again, very quick one. So I'm hoping to get, if I can, three dreams into this session. So this one, so this was 14th of October 2023. So a little bit over a month, I think, or around about a month since the last one. Yeah, around about that. What was it? Yeah, just slightly over a month, because the other one was 6th for the 9th, wasn't it? So this is 14th for the 10th. So this one, I'm just being strangled. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise, I'm being strangled. This one is a sleep paralysis. So this is where I'm just in my bedroom and I'm aware I'm in my bedroom. I can see I'm in my bedroom and I'm being strangled. Oh, okay, yes. This is the one I'm probably going to call something like hands in mouth. Okay, pretty self-explanatory as to where this is going. But I'm being strangled from behind. Where it's got like one hand around it's got a hand around my throat, strangling me and stuff like that. But also, what it's doing is as I said, your thoughts are almost like public knowledge. What you think, the demons know what you're thinking. Okay, so there's kind of like a bit of a connection that comes up, and what it actually starts doing is it's putting its hand over my mouth. Yeah, so it's stopping that, because if it knows what am I going to do, I'm going to start shouting Jesus as quickly as I possibly can to get out of this attack. Okay, that's always what you do. Nothing else. You can still get out of some of these sleep paralysis and attacks without saying Jesus, but they'll go on for a lot longer, and they'll progress a lot further. You don't want to do it. Don't ever get curious with this at all. I know, obviously, people might be curious given all the different things I'm explaining, but you don't want to experience these. You experience once, and you'll know the spirit realm exists. There'll be no doubt in your mind. But as I said, don't get curious with it. There was a period in time where I was so confident, and I was just like, oh yeah, demons, all this. I suppose I've been a little bit like that, to be fair, on these videos. But don't get overly confident about it, because you on your own, you cannot overpower these things. You can't. You do need Jesus for that. But as I said, sometimes they get spooked without you calling out, and then they'll stop the attack. But if they weren't interrupted in any way, they'd carry on. They'd have nothing to stop them from strangling you and choking you out and doing all sorts of, because you're at their mercy essentially, without Jesus. Okay, so this one, as I said, it knew that I was going to call out. So hand over the mouth initially. Okay. And I was probably like, I guess, like trying to say something in the spirit realm, but I could actually feel then the fingers. Okay, so I literally felt the individual fingers going into my mouth, and like kind of like pulling my mouth open and putting them almost like forcing their trying to force a fist, almost into your mouth. But it was more the individual fingers I was feeling that were trying to kind of like manipulate my mouth and stuff. It was gross. It was basically felt like it was trying to stuff both hands into my mouth, specifically for the reason of wanting to prevent me from calling out Jesus as normal. And it went on far longer than normal, because obviously I couldn't easily, because of it, because of what was going on. So I couldn't easily call out like normal. Went on far longer and far more unpleasant, but the outcome is always the same. Jesus hears my distress and pulls me out, unless, again, I've also heard of, again, this might be an interesting sort of anecdote, is I've also at the same time heard of, I just mentioned about seers, people who see in the spirit realm. We have angels, our own personal angels that I hear, that are a fantastic gift from God, obviously, to do various functions. So that would be things like minister to us, so to speak scripture to us, to speak into, sometimes you get a thought that you think is your own and it's not, is in certain circumstances may well be that an angel is telling you something, because what an angel actually is, angel means messenger. Literally, that's what it means. Angel means messenger. And so what are they? They're messengers from God, carrying his word and giving you a message of some kind. Okay. And you also get warrior angels, and even the angels that are there to protect you, still will fight for you. I mean, they'll literally fight for your spirit, and I've, again, reading stuff, as I said, about seers, people who see in the spirit. There was one instance where this guy was sort of talking about how he was off doing something in the spirit, and was vulnerable, and so his angel was kind of guarding his body, basically, while he had left his body and was in the spirit realm. And because, as I mentioned in a previous video, the thing about the silver thread, I think I made, so there's a witch or somebody like that, if they're aware of you in the spirit realm, they can actually come and cut this it's like a tether that's holding you to your spirit, this tether in between. So if that gets cut, then you've got, it's like you're out in space, you've got no way of getting yourself back. And this particular guy that I was reading in the book, was talking about how he was sent on a mission by God to actually help somebody who was kind of stuck. I don't know if the tether had been cut or something, but they've gone into this. If you go into this realm and you're not accompanied, by God, by angels and stuff like that, you're entering a realm that you have no place in being. You're there illegally. Because you're there illegally, then the demonic realm can just just put you in a limbo. And as I said to you, said before, it could be things, people who go into a coma. It could be people go into a coma as a result of that kind of thing. If that cord is cut and they've got no way of actually finding their actual spirit, their essence, is coming back to their body. you know. But yeah, also, as I said, the angels are there to fight on your behalf. So that was never their function. They were never created, by God, to really fulfill that role. But that was because there was no dissension. None of this problem existed. It was only after those third of the angels rebelled against God, that then there was this good and bad. Before that, there wasn't. It was just good, so there was no problem. So that particular seer actually talks about how no, actually, I'm not going to go into that. So otherwise, this will go on forever. But that's basically how that one ended. As I said, eventually I get out. I said I don't know whether it was calling out Jesus, the distress of that got me out, unless an angel was involved in some way, and then they fought for me and were able to kind of knock out this demon. It seems like a weird thing to think of in your mind, isn't it? Like an immortal battling another immortal. I mean, like, how does that work? If neither of you can die, what does winning look like? So I don't really know, but that's what happened. Oh, I'm going to do another quick one actually, which is not a dream, but it's actually an experience I had. Okay, but it's demonic. So let's do this one. So this one, yeah, not a dream at all. But I was basically I'd fully read the Bible at this point. Yeah, I must have done. Or no, or maybe I've just fully done the whole of the New Testament or something like that, given this is September 2023, so I've not been saved really for that long, about 6 months, very roughly. And I'm reading First Enoch. Okay, so that's extra biblical. It's beyond, it's not in the Bible, that one, but it is a book that is referred to in the New Testament, because it was a book that was out there. I think it was written around about sort of 200-ish BC, something like that. So all the people of Jesus' time knew about it, and it was like a common knowledge kind of book. There's quite a lot of books like that. Again, I've mentioned that in various different videos that I've filmed about them, and I've got quite a lot of them where obviously it's all coming from original scrolls that are very, very old, that have been found. Most of them in the are Dead Sea Scrolls, where in caves they've just found loads of batches of scrolls, that have been stuffed in jars and stuff like that, and they've obviously been able to translate them into English, so that you can get books that have commentaries and stuff on them, helping you to understand. There's prophecies and things like that are in them as well, but they're not in what we call the canon. The canon is the Bible in its format right now. Let's say that the Protestant version, I forget on the number, is so it's in the 60s. I think it's around. That's actually, look. I'm not gonna guess on it. How many books there are in the Protestant Bible, but the Catholic Bible has some extra ones. You can still get them if you want to read them, but they're not ones that the Protestant sort of side of things would believe should really be in the Bible. So they're not there. They were taken out. Okay, so they still do exist, and you can buy them, but they're called the Apocrypha. But yeah, you can get those if you wanted to, but you wouldn't ever put anything like the same amount of weight as actual scripture. So don't confuse that. So when I'm reading Enoch, especially like Enoch, like second Enoch, third Enoch, and all that sort of stuff, it starts getting a bit weird. But first Enoch is the one that's referred to in the Bible. So I watched that one, and I don't watch that one, read that one, and I don't think I've really even read the other two, because I've got two copies of Enoch. Actually, I got it from somebody who interprets scripture and stuff like that, and it's their version that they've kind of done, and I've got another one separate to that as well, which had first, second, and third. Yeah, as I said, they started getting a bit weird, and I read that they were written by rabbis and things like that. Way post Jesus, and I thought, well, I'm not really interested in them then. But this one has said this was pre-Christ. This one, first Enoch was, as I said, roughly about 200 BC. I'm assuming at least that sort of time frame, because it was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I believe. Again, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was. But as I said, it's quoted in the Bible. So anyway, So this is not a dream. This is an experience. So I'm reading First Enoch, okay, and I got to a part where, and as I said, I'm not going to say I would encourage you to read it. Prioritize obviously the Bible and reading all of that. But once you get to the point where you're very confident with it, um, then I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily in reading First Enoch as an example. And again, there'll probably be inaccuracies and things like that, but it's more conveying ideas um, that seem like that they could be viable. But it talks about the part where there's the fallen angels. So I literally just mentioned it, didn't I? I didn't even know that this was coming up. So I talked about the third of the angels that fall. They come. Some of those angels decide to breed with women, and it says that it's in Genesis. Is it Genesis? It might be Genesis 6. Again, I'm guessing something like that. But it talks about giants in those days, and there were men of renown. So if you type in men of renown, you'll find it easy. But they was talking about giants on the land in those days, and that they took women. So some people think it took women as wives, but that's only because of it. It's not. It's not. It's not necessarily saying that they took women in the sense of, like you would take a wife in matrimony. This almost felt like more taking, almost like, right, you're mine, and because these beings were so powerful and stuff like that, they could probably take what they wanted. But they bred with women, and they had children, and they're the children that was the whole reason for the flood, to do with Noah. And Noah was saved with his family. The whole reason was because of the area. The world was becoming populated by these hybrids, these abominations, really. Of they're not human, they're not angels. They've just been created by angels and humans breeding together, and so God sends a flood and wipes them all out. That's the whole reason of that, and the sheer level of sin in the world was just to a level that was far, 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 far worse. I mean, it says something like the people of those days, every thought of their mind was like terrible, of who I'm going to kill and steal from and stuff like that. It was just, that's all they were thinking about. So, pretty much completely without God. That like the whole world was, apart from a very, very small few and their lineage. And the reason for that was their lineage was pure. They didn't have any of this kind of DNA. This mixture of DNA, and that's you hear about people saying, "Oh, have you?" When they're kind of mocking a street preacher, saying, "Oh, have you mixed your fabrics? Oh, have you eaten pork?" and all these kind of things. To kind of mock people, mixed fabrics, and a lot of these things were to point back to stuff like that. And some people say, "Oh, it's pointing back to race." Not mixing races and stuff like that. It wasn't to do with that at all. It's quite clear what it's talking about, because if it's anyway, I'm not going to, again, this is what happens. I'll go all over the place. So I'm reading First Enoch, and Enoch is being approached by these fallen angels because they're looking for forgiveness from God, and they want Enoch to actually intercede for them, to ask God for forgiveness, and they get denied any means of salvation. Okay, now this is one of my theories of why, when people take the mark of the beast, which again is an end times prophecy that hasn't happened yet, is that it's going to involve something that physically prevents a person from actually receiving salvation in it now, because of it's kind of scrambled their DNA in some way. They're no longer really human. There's some sort of a hybrid, so there is no salvation for angels. Because they were never meant to sort of sin or obviously rebel in any way. So there was never a plan for salvation for angels. So, and they're immortal. So why would there be a plan, sort of for them? And obviously, humans do have a salvation through Jesus, and obviously pre-Jesus, they were still putting your faith in God and knowing that you can't do things by yourself, and all this kind of stuff that would allow salvation to still take place. So that did exist before Jesus, but Jesus was the one who kind of ushered in a new era, where if you died and you were believing in Jesus Christ, then you would be taken immediately to heaven, or you go to hell. Anything pre-Jesus would be that you'd go to a holding place, which was in the Greek it's called Hades, Um, um, I can't think what it's called in the Hebrew. There's one called Gehenna, which is like a burning fire because of outside Jerusalem they would just tip all of their rubbish and stuff like that over the edge to a place that's called Gehenna, and it was a constant burning fire because they were constantly burning the waste, which again is a good picture of the burning fire of hell. But again, Gehenna, I believe, is more to do with the lake of fire, which is the Helter, which is kind of like the future hell. Hell exists as a holding place, but then there'll be the burning lake of fire, which is where um, those that are in hell kind of get emptied into there, along with Satan and demons and all sorts. Okay, they're all going to be all the rebels essentially going to be put into that place. Um, so as I said, so because of they're a mixture of both human and angel. Well, angels don't have salvation plans, and humans do, but because they're a soul that's like a mingled soul, let's say, because I don't know the real mechanics of it all, but a mingled soul, then there is no salvation. So when I'm saying demons, what I mean is these are not the fallen angels. So the fallen angels that rebelled against God, they're actually locked up in gloomy darkness. It says, okay, but the ones who had the children, let's say, of this mix, they are the demons I'm talking about. So everybody I'm talking about here, I'm talking about a spirit of somebody that lived on the earth as a being, but was a mixture of human and angel, and so their soul had nowhere to go. Okay, it doesn't have it's as soon as you're dead, obviously you separate, and they did die because they were part human, obviously, so they weren't immortal from that sense. But so they're in this limbo, so they can't go anywhere. Yeah, so these are the demons. These are the ones that are attacking people because they don't have a salvation plan, and they're not going to be welcomed back. So they are just for for everlasting. Until, well, there is no end of time, but eternity. I don't know what the plan is for them. I can't remember, but yeah, that's why they're terrorizing people, because they hate human beings, because we have a salvation plan. We have a way of being reunited with the Father, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, as one with God. So I'm reading this part where it's telling where these fallen angels. I do refer to them as fallen angels because they are in this bit. But when I'm talking about demons, they are what we refer to as the Nephilim. So they're yeah. So they're because the Nephilim sort of means like the fallen ones or something similar to that. Nefesh is like the word that Nephilim comes from. But again, feel free to look into that. So hopefully that kind of describes a bit more about demons and where they kind of come from. They are this mixture of what was human and angel, breeding together to create a hybrid form of thing that was on the earth. Then the flood came, wiped them all out. But it does say that there were Nephilim afterwards as well. So I don't quite know how that works. But again, there's some theories with some extra biblical works that describe that. Again, I won't go into that here. So I'm obviously not going to get onto another dream. I'm going to finish it off with this. What happens here? So I'm talking about this. I'm talking about how Enoch is actually interceding and speaking to God and saying, that they and basically conveying back to them that no, God's not going to offer you any forgiveness. There is no means of salvation for you. Okay, and as I was reading that exact passage, I was basically just like knocked in. So when a lot of the times when you have demonic attacks, it's like you've just been cracked over the head and knocked out, or almost it's like you're put into a sleep, almost like a hypnotist, kind of like sleep, and then you're in it. When you're wide awake and you're reading something, and you're doing stuff, and then suddenly you go into a flash image. Okay, it's like they almost have to somehow disable certain parts of your mind to allow them to communicate. Because I've had this many times. Anyway, so that's what happens. I'm reading the passage, and then I just get knocked into this weird doziness. And as that happens, this is where a lot of these images and things like that happen. Sometimes I wonder if that's how some of the sleep paralysis happen. They just kind of knock you into a bit of a weird in between phase of like a sleep phase that you wouldn't enter that quickly. It doesn't, naturally. I was perfectly awake, and then I was just pushed into this weird sort of sleep from nowhere. Anyway, as mentioned, so I was awake but dreamy, and I had this sort of sensed a being to the side of me. Okay, like it could have been reading with me, like looking over my shoulder and reading with me. And there was a scream in my right ear that was so incredibly loud that I thought it was going to burst my eardrum. Okay, and this is while I'm sitting here in the real world. So, as I said, in a sleep paralysis mode. So, I am here in my body, but this is that type of sleep paralysis where, as I said, you're in your body, you're not outside of your body. So, everything's in color, all that kind of stuff. But I see, and I actually, no, it wasn't this one. There was another one where I actually saw a flash image of the demon next to me. I've already, I think, recorded that video, but I can't remember what that one's called. But there's also something like that happened. But this scream was so loud. Like it would, if it was a real scream, this would have woken up everybody in the house and your next door neighbours. It was that loud. Didn't hold back. And this scream was almost deafening in my right ear. And as I mentioned, I've sort of I pictured it in my mind doing it. I'm not so sure if I did, but I kind of got a sense of it, if that makes any sense. The scream was, for reference, don't watch this film. Don't watch this film. There's a film I watched once called White Noise, which is all about, like, interestingly, the TV static. I've mentioned before about sleep paralysis. It has a texture almost exactly the same as, like, or very, very similar to the static I mentioned. It has a texture to it. The realm has this weird, it doesn't quite feel like our realm. It's obviously, you would see your own, like me right here at the dining room table, I'd see everything around me exactly how it is, but it's kind of grainy, it's black and white, and it's quite often got like a background frequency to it. Like it has had high pitch frequency sometimes. It's like kind of, as I said, like I can't describe it better than that, I'm afraid. But this film, White Noise, is where it's got Michael Keating in it, and he's lost his wife, and somebody, I think some random person comes up to him and says that his wife has been trying to communicate with him, and he's this guy who's got like loads of TVs he has on white noise. So white noise is literally what that is, isn't it? It's called white noise. Static. It's like a static sort of screen, and then you'd have all these spirits that were like bumping up against the screen and saying stuff and giving messages, and they were prophetic messages. But these were demons, so these were kind of like, it was showing these things happen, but they were the ones who were creating it in the first place anyway. So it's easy to predict the future if you're the one who's actually doing it. But and it's a horror. So as I said, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not good. You don't feel good after watching that film, if you see what I mean. It doesn't put you in a good state. But in that, the scream was identical, absolutely identical to this. Well, again, in this, it's seen as a spirit, and they think that they're being helped initially. But there's these three. Interestingly, there's these three spirits. It's almost like the demonic trilogy, these three spirits, which are actually killing people in the real world, But in this, it was this scream, this ear-piercing scream. It was identical to that. Again, I am not going to try and emulate that in any way, but I felt so. I mean, obviously, you can imagine if you've heard a scream like that while you're awake, that just suddenly happened in your ear. I was really shook up by that, and it really made me think, like I wanted to get out of there. Really, it was nasty. It wasn't nice. It was not pleasant at all. And as I said, I couldn't see it or anything like that. I just got a sense of it. In dreams, you get very much a sense of things, and quite often you can picture things happening or picture these spirits without actually seeing them with your eyes in a dream sense. If you see what I mean, I'm not looking around and seeing it there, but I'm getting a feeling of it and stuff like that. Anyway, and yeah, like it genuinely like put the hairs up on my arms up, and it freaked me out. Anyway, that's that one. As I said, I wasn't planning to put that in, but it's a good one to put in actually. So we have got three in there, but just not three dreams. Okay. So this one, I'll just put a quick note of that. So that's page 24. Right, lovely. Okay, so some real world stuff that that kind of happens not even in dreams, but in the reality. Happens like that. Okay, brilliant. We'll leave that one there. As I said, it's longer than the one I'd actually planned. I'd planned to do it as about half an hour. Most of these ones I'm trying to get to half an hour. We're at 45 minutes, so apologies for that. But hopefully, given that there was three in there, it made it more worthwhile. 15 minutes a piece, not too bad. As I said, I was going for half an hour or two. Okay, lovely. Right, I'm going to move on to the next one. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you on the next one. Please do follow this series all the way through. You're going to see how things do change from sleep paralysis into dreams, attacks, and anecdotal things like that. Again, and where they intersect with reality as well. So almost basically prophetic. I'd see something happen, and then later that same day, that actually happens. But yeah, I'm going to try and get all this kind of stuff out because of these dreams are kind of expanding. As I said, I had one like a week or two ago that I'm gonna look. I literally wrote it up last night. It's a really interesting dream, but I'm just going to concentrate on the demonic side. So, whenever I talk about a dream like the airport lounge, which I've talked about, please do watch that the whole way through because there's a lot more information there than I've gone through with you. Although I have covered a lot of it, to be fair, because so much of that dream was demonic. Whereas a lot of the demonic attack ones could be normal dream, normal dream, normal dream, and then the last moments goes demonic. So what I'm going to do in the dreams where it's like that is I'm just going to concentrate on that little demonic element, okay? So that it's worthwhile you watching the full episode when I film it if I haven't already filmed it. Okay, right, that's it. I will see you in the next one.